The story commences as several assassins embark on a quest to locate Pio Wall, and they are determined to find and eliminate him, regardless of his hiding place. Hidden beneath a tree, Pio Wall contemplates the impending threat posed by several assassins who are relentlessly pursuing him with the intent to take his life, and this perilous situation was not how his journey began. Introducing himself as Pio Wall, he reflects on his past as a carefree wanderer who roamed the lands, both dry and aquatic, and all of this changed when he encountered a certain individual. Upon awakening from a prolonged slumber, Pio Wall found himself surrounded by an unending abyss of darkness. Each day that followed was a harrowing ordeal akin to a living hell. The obscurity was teeming with individuals driven to take lives in a desperate bid to ensure their survival, and as the days passed, Pio Wall underwent a profound transformation, influenced by the relentless darkness, ultimately evolving into an assassin. An assassin triumphantly announces that they have discovered Pio Wall's whereabouts and apprehended him. Undeterred by his dire circumstances, Pio Wall resolutely vows to not only survive but to seek retribution against all those who have threatened his existence. The story begins with Pio Wall in the market, where he is busy collecting some food. He remarks to himself that he has managed to gather a decent amount for the day, and since a fair is taking place today, it's a satisfactory haul. He contemplates his next step, pondering where he should find a place to sleep for the night. Introducing himself as Pio Wall, he reveals that he is a 14-year-old orphan, a wanderer with no fixed abode, who roams the lands aimlessly, devoid of any roots or permanent residence. While scanning his surroundings, he spots something in the distance and wonders if it's the bridge he had seen earlier. His thoughts are interrupted as he suddenly comes face to face with a tall, mysterious figure standing before him, prompting him to inquire about the stranger's identity. After a while, he finds himself in a dark place, unable to move. He realizes that his eyes are open, and he hasn't been blinded. Instead, he is in total darkness, with not a single ray of light in sight. Puzzled, he questions the whereabouts of this place. He attempts to move but is met with complete immobilization. Frustrated, he remarks that he cannot move an inch, lacking any semblance of strength, and he wonders why this has happened. He recalls the moment when he was collecting food, and a dark man appeared in front of him. He believes that this man, encountered on the road earlier, might be connected to why he finds himself in a place like this. However, he doesn't know the man's name or identity. Perplexed, he questions why he's been trapped here and notes that he can't recall having any unresolved grudges, which suggests that the man might have a different motive, something other than killing him. He thinks about his own identity, reiterating his name as Pio Wall. His age is 14, and his parents' names, Pio and Hak and Lee Seonhom. As he looks around in the overwhelming darkness, he ponders whether he lost consciousness or if he has been awake this whole time. He admits that he doesn't know how much time has passed, expressing feelings of fear and loneliness. To maintain his sanity, he forces himself to remember who he is. In his dire situation, he realizes that he is hungry and fears that he may die from starvation or insanity if he remains trapped like this. He questions why he's been left to starve and what he did to deserve such treatment. He claims he didn't plead or beg this man for anything. He believes that even if he's a destitute beggar with nothing to his name, there's no justification for being cast into this hellish situation. With a great struggle, he attempts to move his hand, eventually succeeding. He's relieved to regain control over his hand, which allows him to breathe more easily. He notices his bodily senses returning, discerning a damp smell, feeling the cold ground, and realizing that he is underground. He hears the sound of water drops and acknowledges the need to drink. He exerts great effort to move his leg and body, determined to survive. As he gains mobility, he moves closer to a stone wall. He attempts to break it but injures his finger, realizing it's futile. He lies down once more. At that moment, his inner soul appears before him. He inquires why he's putting in so much effort to survive, and he is taken aback by his inner soul. His inner soul finds it amusing and questions the value of his seemingly worthless existence for him to fight so hard. He tells him to surrender. He retorts that if he gives up, he won't find peace. He asks if he truly believes that. He inquires what he meant. He asks if he truly believes that he'll find peace if he lets everything go. He responds that he doesn't think so and that he's determined to survive. He accuses him of wasting his strength. He states that he won't find peace if he dies like this, and that without seeking revenge against the one who trapped him, he won't be able to rest, even in death. He reiterates his determination to survive and take revenge against those responsible for his predicament. He inquires if he's genuinely committed to seeking revenge, to which he firmly replies in the affirmative. He questions whether he will ever give up. He confirms that he'll never give up. As he reflects, he still can't see anything and wonders if the earlier encounter was a dream or if he's genuinely descending into madness. He gets up and proclaims his determination to survive. Approaching the wall, he notices some plants growing where water is dripping and wonders if they are moss. Uncertain about their edibility, he decides to eat them, recognizing that he must do so to survive. He eats some of the plants and reflects on how terrible they taste. But his body feels fine, leading him to consider their edibility. Taking another bite of the plants, he reaffirms his determination to eat and survive no matter what. As he stands and explores the place, he estimates it to be approximately a 9 by 9 meter square. He is convinced someone has deliberately trapped him in here. He detects a sound resembling that of an iron door, and his attention is drawn to someone opening a small window in the door. He notices the intense light streaming in through the window and comments on how blinding it is. Despite the brightness, he feels compelled to approach and inquire if there's someone else in there. The person outside the door places a small bowl of food through the window and promptly closes it. He smells the food and recognizes a mixture of scents, including rotten fish, tea leaves, and leftover pork, likely from the bone. He considers that this variety of food waste suggests that it's improbable for one person to consume all these different kinds of food. Consequently, he deduces that there may be 5 or more people outside the door, and they've confined him here for some specific reason. In that case, he believes that he's not the sole individual confined here, and creating a space like this solely for his imprisonment would be highly inefficient. Therefore, there are at least 5 organizers involved, and it's quite probable that more than 5 people find themselves in a similar predicament. He contemplates their objectives and proceeds to enjoy the hot spices and pork, along with Sichuan food. He considers that he has ample time and plans to ponder the situation further after finishing his meal. After consuming the food, he discards the bowl. After 4 months, he engages in exercises and reflects on the passage of time. He acknowledges that it's been at least 4 months since he became trapped in this confined space. Each day, they open the small door to provide food. But apart from that, there is complete silence. He remarks on how they persist in confining him within this narrow, dark enclosure. He thinks back to the time when he believed he might go insane in this situation. Surprisingly, he has not spent his time doing much of anything, but he has gradually become accustomed to this pitch-black environment. He is now capable of discerning his surroundings to some extent, and has even started to notice movement within this underground area. He observes centipedes and comments on how many insects thrive in a place devoid of any light. As he continues to look around, he notices 2 eyes in the darkness and wonders if they belong to centipedes. Suddenly, a snake slithers near him and coils itself around his arm. He is startled by this and the snake bites his arm, causing him to scream in pain. He ponders what is happening as his entire body starts to feel like it's burning. He experiences pain in his chest and wonders if it could be snake venom. He continues to scream in pain. Just then, the man opens the door window and places the food inside. He drags himself closer to the bowl, picks it up, and resolves not to die, no matter what, as he eats the food. After a while, he regains his senses, and the snake once again appears before him. He observes the snake and thinks that's what it looks like. He had a near-death experience due to the snake's venom, but he believes some sort of change has occurred within his body during the detoxification process. Now, he can see more clearly in front of him, which fascinates him. He attempts to pick up the snake, pondering whether it's because of this creature. He recalls stories of people becoming stronger after surviving poisoning. He wonders if he can gain resistance to poison and perhaps acquire a new weapon. The snake bites his hand once more, causing the veins in his arm to pop out. He wonders if he should have been more careful or not attempted this. He feels like his entire body is on fire, but it's not as severe as the first time he was bitten. He notices that the snake's eyes have adapted to the darkness, making it an exceptional hunter. It approaches its prey stealthily, sometimes incapacitating them using sound. Surprisingly, the snake isn't greedy. After finishing its meal, it doesn't intimidate the other insects in the vicinity or chase them away. He considers that perhaps the only creatures displaying intelligence in this darkness are the snake and himself. After a while, he feels something and wonders if this vibration might be coming from the door. He believes the door has opened. He steps out and enters the lobby, thinking the next room is just 20 steps away, which is why he couldn't sense the presence of others. Upon opening the door, he is hit by a foul smell and discovers that the person living in the room is dead, and although he can't make out many details, their build suggests they are around his age. He wonders if it's the same situation in other rooms. As he explores more rooms, he encounters an iron door blocking the hallway, with the bolts removed. He opens the door and finds someone inside. He He notices So Yeowal and Song Chin-woo inside the room but doesn't say a word to them as he starts exploring the place. He observes more deceased individuals in the other rooms and realizes it's the same situation here. She inquires about his identity and where he came from. She mentions that she and Song Chin-woo are the only survivors here. He thinks she's looking in his direction, but she can't see him in this darkness, and it appears that he is the only one who has fully adapted to this environment. He introduces himself as Pio Wall and explains that he was trapped in the adjacent section. She asks if he's suggesting there are more places like this. He confirms it and asks for their names. So Yeowal introduces herself and the person next to her as Song Chin-woo. He suggests they go and explore further, mentioning that there seem to be more places like this. As they explore, they discover more rooms similar to the one they were in. He takes the lead and encourages them to follow. So Yeowal suggests that Song Chin-woo hold her hand since it is dark, and he agrees. After a while, they enter a room and find many people there. Pio Wall starts to explore this section and discovers some deceased individuals. He thinks that, unlike where he was, there are barely any people who starved to death. Instead, he notices marks on their arms and concludes that they committed suicide. He sees the bowls of food and considers that there are more bowls and food here than where he was, wondering if they were discriminating. He ponders what could lead to such discrimination in section management. Just then, So Yeowal calls him and informs him that these individuals were also trapped around the same time they were, introducing them to Pio Wall. After a while, they all gather together and move forward, following Pio Wall as they approach a large iron door. He attempts to open the door and a bright light floods inside. He thinks that, even outside, they are still underground. The duration of their time underground has been so long that even the light from a torch blinds them. They enter an area where a few houses have been constructed and they start exploring. After checking a place, he reports back that there's no one there. So Yeowal agrees with him and asks what's going on. He observes the houses and notices that they appear flimsy, constructed in haste, and designed only for exterior appearances, with poorly made interiors. Just then, Lee Sealman approaches him, introduces herself, and says he will be looking after her from now on. She gently touches his face and asks if his eyes have been like this from the beginning. He inquires about what she means, and she mentions his red pupils, noting their beauty. He asks if his pupils are indeed red, expressing concern about being different from others in a place like this. He wonders if it has something to do with the snake bite. She reassures him that his pupils are only faintly red when there's a torch nearby, and they aren't very noticeable under normal conditions. She adds that it seems he wasn't aware of this and speculates that it might have happened to him during his time here. He silently thanks his good fortune. She inquires about what's occupying his thoughts, and he responds vaguely. She tells him he's different from the other kids, to which he asks how so. She simply says he just is, as the others are all bewildered, while he's the only one who seems to be thinking. Just then, So Yeowal spots them and inquires about what the two of them are doing there. Lee Sealman casually responds that they are having a conversation. So Yeowal informs them that the other kids have decided to stay together from now on and asks what their plans are. Pio Wall seeks clarification and So Yeowal questions whether they intend to join the others. He vaguely states that they will wait and see how things unfold. So Yeowal presses further, asking what exactly they are waiting to see and if he has no intention of joining them. He reiterates that he's reserving judgment for now. So Yeowal accepts this and tells him to feel free to approach her if he has a change of heart. She then turns to Lee Sealman, who expresses her willingness to join So Yeowal, recognizing that sticking together provides a greater advantage for survival than going it alone. So Yeowal approves of her decision. Pio Wall reflects on the situation, thinking that after being isolated in the dark for so long, they can't be in their right minds, and even though he can hardly believe it, he decides to observe the others from a distance for the time being. Pio Wall observes that it's only been a short while since the kids saw each other's faces, and already several groups have formed. There's the group led by So Yeowal and Song Chin-woo, the one with Kang Lai in charge, another gathered around Yeom Il-jung, and a group with Go Young-sin at its head. He finds himself as someone not belonging to any group. One individual approaches the other, asking if he heard that there were no survivors in the section Pio Wall was in and questioning how he managed to survive when everyone else perished. He even wonders if he might have been responsible for their deaths, given that he isn't joining any group. Pio Wall hears their words but thinks that the world remains the same no matter where they go. At the moment, he doesn't have the time to pay attention to such matters. He enters the room where he was previously trapped, runs his fingers along the wall, and reflects on how the building appears to be relatively new. However, the presence of extensive moss suggests that this underground space was constructed a long time ago, and has been repurposed recently by someone with significant resources. Paya Wall contemplates that this is not a task within the reach of an ordinary person. After a while, a glimmer of light from the ceiling catches Paya Wall's attention, prompting everyone to gather beneath it. Soon, a basket descends from the ceiling, filled with a variety of vegetables. The sight of food excites them, and some begin to suggest eating, but So Yeowal and Song Chun-woo intervene, causing frustration among the group members. They demand to know what is happening, and So Yeowal asks why they aren't distributing the food fairly to everyone. The various group leaders step forward, and she suggests they, as representatives, oversee the distribution. Just then, Paya Wall arrives and asserts his claim, saying he's going to take his share of the food. Yeom Iljung becomes angry and forcibly restrains Paya Wall when he tries to reach for some vegetables. He asserts that no one is allowed to take food from the basket without their permission, emphasizing that everything in the basket will be controlled by them. Paya Wall becomes infuriated and slaps him, striking his face. The shocking act leaves everyone in disbelief. He hits him again and demands that Yeom Iljung repeat his previous statement. He proceeds to grip his neck and instructs him to say it once more. So Yeowal intervenes, urging him to release him immediately. However, he inserts his finger into Yeom Iljung's eye, causing it significant harm. The onlookers express fear and concern, questioning his mental state. So Yeowal pleads with him to release Yeom Iljung, explaining that they cannot communicate in such a manner. He questions why he should comply. She emphasizes that he should have realized this after the earlier altercation. He inquires about the food, and she assures him that no one will take his portion. Reluctantly, he releases Yeom Iljung and gets up. Yeom Iljung directs offensive language toward him, to which he responds by daring Yeom Iljung to have the same done to his other eye, as he doesn't mind going blind. They proceed to eat the food. Paya Wall observes them from the rooftop and believes this situation is a test designed to identify the useful children. He is convinced that it was the case from the beginning and expects it will continue until they achieve their objective, resulting in the deaths of many children. He resigns himself to the fact that they would have become his enemies eventually. After a while, So Yeowal approaches him and inquires about how he has been doing. She asks if he's still doing fine, despite making enemies out of everyone here and causing many children to leave Yeom Iljung's group. He inquires if her group has indeed become the largest. She responds by saying that she initially thought he wasn't interested in their dynamics since he kept his distance. However, she now realizes he's been observing everything. He explains that he's keeping an eye on those who show interest in him. He privately notes that So Yeowal's group stands out because they secure the most food while she eats the least, and this is why the other children are highly loyal to her, and she undoubtedly stands out the most among the leaders. She inquires if he is still residing in that dark room because the other children are cautious of him. He responds by saying it's comfortable there, and he privately thinks he also wanted to build up more resistance to poison, as being bitten is no longer painful, and he suspects he has become somewhat resistant to it. She questions why he doesn't join their group instead of remaining by himself like this. He reiterates that he believes he has already answered that question. She asks if he didn't say he would wait and see. She announces that it's mealtime. Kang Lai expresses his hope that none of the others decide to get in the basket this time, to avoid falling to their death when the rope is cut while it's going up. They spot the basket, and Song Chun-woo exclaims what the hell. Kang Lai questions why there's only this little food. Paya Wall realizes that it has begun. Paya Wall states that Maknosum is a boy who has survived in the last section and has entered the group led by So Yeowal. He possesses the smallest build in her group, but he is pulling his weight through sheer tenacity. It is reported that he was found dead. Another member of the group inquires about who would do such a thing, and he expresses that he will not forgive the person responsible. Paya Wall explains that everyone is aware that the reason for Maknosum's death is that he is the weakest. After a while, So Yeowal and Song Chun-woo stand near the dead body of Maknosum as he utters "damn it." They'd take revenge if they knew who did this. She asserts it doesn't matter who did this, that's not the important part. What's important is that someone who follows them is dead. She believes they have to exact revenge in the same manner. He remarks the weakest of another group will be killed next, and a war has begun. He continues ultimately, the weakest of Go Yeonsun's group has been found dead, and this is only the beginning. Every time a night passes, someone is found dead, like one of So Yeowal's, then one of Yeom Iljung's, and next is in Kang Lai's groups. They continue to die. He observes that the children have started distrusting each other and have become as savage as demons due to starvation. He takes some plants from the wall and eats them, expressing it's disgusting. He can never get used to this taste. He believes that the starved children have not yet come this far, but he is certain that peace will end soon. Meanwhile, he notices some children approaching, so he believes they're here and counts them. He states there are at least 4, but there's no way they've reached this far by losing their way. Yo Miljung inquires if he is certain this is the place. His team member confirms, saying he's sure. He saw him come and go this way with his own eyes. Yo Miljung questions the whereabouts of him who has killed 2 people after their fight. Now, it's the perfect time to take revenge on Pio Wall. He wonders about the whereabouts of Pio Wall, while his team member starts shouting that something has bitten his leg, and then falls. They all ask him what's happened to him, but he has already died. Yo Miljung announces there's something here. They are all on high alert as they begin searching the area while he continues to shout to know where he is. Pio Wall emerges from behind and grabs Jianghu by the neck, while Yo Miljung sees this and says let Jianghu go this instant. However, he is concerned that at this rate, he will die, and he will become a murderer. He contemplates that it might be acceptable not to kill him right now, but he knows he will have to kill someone sooner or later. He proceeds to kill him and throws the body on the floor. Yo Miljung replies that he has killed all of his men and declares himself a demon, launching an attack. He attempts to defend against the attacks, but he manages to evade his strikes and disappears. He asks aloud where he is. Where did he go? He urges him not to run away like a rat and to come out, emphasizing that it won't end with just one eye this time. Pio Wall returns, push him against the wall, and moves closer, but he suggests wait, let's join forces. He responds by saying that he won't be able to survive against all those kids for long, so they should work together. He adds that not even so Yoal and Song Chunwoo's group will be a match for them if they join forces, causing him to take a few steps back. He suggests that if he doesn't like that idea, they could consider him as an underling, and he's willing to become his underling. He insists that he is different from those he killed earlier and is useful, urging him to make use of his skills. Pio Wall expresses his belief that he may be obedient at first, but he is also convinced that the same problems will arise as time passes. He counters, saying that Pio Wall is wrong. He won't behave that way, not at all. In response, Pio Wall punches him and grabs his neck. He pleads for mercy, but Pio Wall goes ahead and kills him. He states the reason for the killing is that he is still weak and instructs him to go away. Pio Wall reports that Yo Miljung's group has been disbanded due to the discovery of his and his confidants' lifeless bodies. Kang Lai suspects that Pio Wall is the one who killed Yo Miljung, so Yoal ponders just how formidable Pio Wall is, considering he managed to eliminate 4 people on his own. Kang Lai believes it would be unwise to become his adversary. Go Yongsun views him as cunning and spiteful, recognizing his ability to instill fear in people. He is lying on the floor and contemplates that the problem has escalated to a point where distributing reduced food among them all won't solve it. People had to be killed to secure food. He reflects that, in the end, everyone has become a murderer, just as Pio Wall killed Yo Miljung, who once held power during this turmoil, making him untouchable now. He cautions his team members, telling them not to even contemplate taking any action against Pio Wall or approaching him. He points out that there's nothing more terrifying than someone with nothing to lose. His team members acknowledge and say they understand. Meanwhile, one of his team members rushes toward him and calls out to him. He inquires why the hurry, to which the team member responds that there are 2 guys over at the Red House in the north. He believes they are the individuals who are banished from So Yoal's group. He quickly gets up and asks for confirmation, to which the team member replies that he has checked multiple times and is sure of their identity. He further queries about their food, and his team member informs him that they are holding a single potato and will consume it all if not reached quickly. His other team member urges let's go quickly, boss, while he contemplates the idea of killing someone for just 1 potato. He eventually agrees, saying alright, all of them, get ready. After a while, they arrive at the location and observe 2 individuals sitting on the stairs with a potato. Just as So Yoal is about to eat it, they all launch an attack on the 2, shouting to kill them and take that potato. The 2 individuals become frightened and make a run for it. A group chases after them, instructing them to stop and not let them escape. Go Yongsun intervenes and orders them to stop and hand over the potato. While observing the situation, he senses that something is amiss because their position is disadvantageous. So Yoal whistles while running, and their team members emerge from inside to attack Go Yongsun's team. He notices that his team members are in trouble and curses, realizing that it's a trap. They attempt to retreat, but they are all caught. So Yoal remarks that they've captured a significant catch with just a single potato. She states that it appears they can significantly reduce the number of mouths to feed today. Go Yongsun reflects on the mistake and questions how she could do this. He asks if she can find satisfaction in ending his life when he pleads with her. She replies that she'd be open to hearing his requests but indicates they cannot spare that much food. He inquires if she will only be content after they've killed them all. She responds by saying he would have done the same in her position and orders her team to eliminate them all. Her team carries out the orders. As she walks away, she looks at the roof of the house where Paya Wall is sitting. She comments that she sees how it is and contemplates battles involving terrain, various shortcuts, and tricks. She reflects on the placement of buildings that make infiltration impossible as long as there is competent security. This location seems to be a unique addition of a place that exists, or perhaps a near-perfect replica. He reflects on the idea that the individuals who constructed this place intend for them to grow accustomed to it and become desensitized to killing. He believes they aim to groom them for use in a terrain like this someday. If there's such a huge house, it likely indicates that it belongs to a prominent Jianghu clan or a highly influential figure. He further contemplates the massive consequences that could arise from attacking this place recklessly. That's why they are using them as tools, ones they can discard after exploiting. He observes that they have been thrown into a hellish environment, which is systematically eroding their natural tendencies because they are being molded into assassins, the tools desired by those in control. So Yoal's team members sit down, and one of them mentions that he recognizes the person he strangled to death. He recalls how the person looked like a gasping fish before dying. Another team member adds that he witnessed the person getting startled when they approached him from behind and initially mistook him for a hedgehog or something. He praises their boss for being the best, so Yoal joins them and declares that it's a complete victory, asserting that no one would dare challenge them now. They all share a laugh. Meanwhile, Lee Xiaoman sits in a corner with a sense of sadness. She reflects on the lingering smell of blood and gazes at her hands. She ponders how they've all become desensitized to murder and wonders how they can eat so casually with hands stained by another person's blood. She finds it disgusting, both the other kids and herself, and tears begin to well up in her eyes. After a while, So Yoal mentions that it should be coming down a little later. Kang Lai questions her, asking if it's already time for a meal. She clarifies that they need to secure as much as possible. Her team members express their agreement with the plan. She goes on to say that with Go Youngsin gone, they'll finally be able to eat to their heart's content. There's no group left that can stop them now. So Yoal then wonders about Paya Wall's whereabouts. She gazes at the roof and spots him. Meanwhile, Kang Lai is curious as to why Paya Wall has such a stern expression on his face, as if he's cautious and deeply concerned about something. After some time, assassins arrive and initiate an attack on them. They attempt to defend themselves, but the assassins manage to eliminate all of them. He reflects that he had expected something like this to happen, but he can't believe they're resorting to violence right from the beginning. Not even wild animals are trained in such a brutal manner. He tells himself to endure it because making a move now would only draw attention, and he must avoid attracting any notice. He notices the arrival of 3 swordsmen and thinks to himself that they are the ones truly in command of these masked individuals. He witnesses them kill all his team members. Lim Seol steps forward and declares that they may refer to him as the first sword. He emphasizes that their lives now belong to him, and there are no exceptions to this rule. All of them will be under his control. One of the team members inquires about their identity, but an assassin promptly kills him, leaving the others in shock. Lim Seol asserts that he has not granted any of them permission to speak. He presents a pot and explains that when they place poisonous organisms into the same container, they will consume each other until only one remains. The survivor will possess the most potent poison, which he refers to as curse poison. He states that among the countless children, only the most wicked and those with the strongest survival instincts have managed to survive, just as they intended. He inquires about which of them is worth paying attention to. Second Sword Gu Xinhing directs his question to So Yoal, noting that, as the leader of the largest group, her influence over the children is the most significant. If they don't properly break her spirit, she will become much more challenging to handle in the future. Lim Seol adds that they should give her special attention to ensure she doesn't even contemplate rebelling. Gu Xinhing agrees and states that Song Chenwu and Kang Lai are also deserving of attention. Although they may have been overshadowed by So Yoal, they stand out in terms of their martial arts skills and instincts. Lim Seol inquires about what happened to someone. The individual responds that if he means Paya Wall, then he is still alive. He explains that he has observed Sector 1, where the conditions are the poorest and the food is the scarcest, and he believes that the survivors from that place would not be normal. He advises to pay very close attention to Paya Wall, to which Lim Seol agrees before walking away. Lim Seol comments on the time remaining, saying that there are only 6 years left. He emphasizes that they must fulfill the request before that time. While looking at a box, he wonders why the captain accepted a request like this, exclusive to the Blood Phantom Group captain, which entails an assassination mission with a duration of 7 years. The reward for this task is 500,000 gold yuan, with the condition being not to leave a single trace related to the Blood Phantom Group. Third Sword Sang Ilshin commands their attention, declaring that the final house is their objective. He points to Lim Seol, indicating the top floor of the house. He explains that the one who reaches it the fastest will be rewarded with a 2-hour break. Conversely, the last one to reach it will experience the true meaning of hell. Pio Wall reflects on the merciless days that have persisted. He describes their days as being filled with training designed to mold them into assassins. He emphasizes that if they cannot endure this grueling process, they will simply perish before ever getting to experience the outside world again. He concludes that they must do whatever it takes to survive. In his thoughts, he acknowledges So Yeowal as the most exceptional among them. He highlights her outstanding intelligence, top-notch judgment, exceptional guts, and impressive executive abilities. Meanwhile, Lim Seol inquires about Pio Wall, and Gu Xinhing responds that he's performing at an average level. So far, he hasn't displayed anything that sets him apart from the others. Lim Seol expresses some doubt, stating that he might have had higher expectations for Pio Wall, considering he's the sole survivor of Sector 1. However, he instructs Gu Xinhing to continue observing Pio Wall, just in case. So Yeowal is curious about the thunder-splitting cultivation technique. Pio Wall questions if she's still reading that, considering she has already learned enough. So Yeowal explains that the instructors have stopped making them read it. He remarks that he must have been in the mood for it, and So Yeowal jokingly asks if he ever gets tired, noting that he's as fit as a fiddle. She departs and comments have fun with that. She's going to sleep first. He responds with a simple sure. Sang Ilshin acknowledges her quick learning ability and reflects that they had a tough time grasping it. He believes they will give her 3 months to master it. Pio Wall engages in meditation and contemplates that if he acquaints himself with the first process of the thunder-splitting cultivation technique, his body will transform into one capable of sensing Kai and accumulating internal energy. He notes that the technique the instructors had them learn was primarily to help them sense Kai. Both the children and instructors consider the thunder-splitting cultivation technique merely a stepping stone for sensing Kai, yet none of them appear to have fully understood it. He employs the term splitting thunder, recognizing that it's not humanly possible to physically split thunder. He interprets it as referring to the speed of his thoughts. With this interpretation in mind, he believes that if he learns the thunder-splitting cultivation technique, he'll gain something different from what he's acquired thus far. Even if he masters a martial art more rapidly than others, he's determined not to display it openly. He's resolved not to stand out either for being too exceptional or for lacking in any way, which has been his approach until now. Suddenly, So Joksen arrives and launches an attack on Pio Wall, but he manages to evade the attack. So Joksen notes his successful dodge and remarks that it's no fun to engage in a staged fight, doesn't he think? Pio Wall responds by questioning why So Joksen is acting this way. So Joksen explains that it's not enjoyable when they're not putting their all into the fight. Pio Wall ponders this and believes that the instructor is paying little attention to them after teaching them the sword forms and seems indifferent to what happens. So Joksen decides to go all out and launches another attack on Pio Wall. He mentions that if he doesn't, he'll simply be devoured. They engage in fights, with Pio Wall noting that So Joksen is even using hidden blades. Pio Wall manages to dodge some thrown blades, but he attempts to attack his chest with a knife. Sang Ilshin joins the fight alongside Pio Wall. So Joksen compliments him, expressing disbelief that he managed to block all of those attacks. He remarks that it's not fun if Pio Wall merely keeps defending and encourages him to provide more entertainment. Pio Wall realizes he has no other option, so he throws his knife and advances towards So Joksen. He, once again, rushes to launch an attack and questions if Pio Wall is giving up so soon. In response, Pio Wall kicks him and sends him flying, causing So Joksen to start bleeding. Sang Ilshin comments that their rate of progress has surpassed their expectations. Meanwhile, Gu Xinhing comments that at this rate, it might only take 5 years instead of 7. Lim Seol disagrees, stating that he's underestimating their target. He believes that the man they are up against possesses the most talent in all of Sichuan. To face such a formidable adversary, even perfect preparations may not be enough. Any sort of mistake could lead to the complete annihilation of the entire Blood Phantom group. Lim Seol explains that the reason the captain is training these children, who have no connection to them, is to ensure that there won't be any issues even if they fail. Gu Xinhing apologizes, acknowledging that he wasn't underestimating their target. Lim Seol acknowledges the importance of remaining on full alert, and he emphasizes that it's crucial. The other person agrees and shows understanding. Lim Seol proceeds to inquire once more if there are any problems with passing down the assassination techniques to them. The response is that there are no issues, and he is encouraged to push the trainees even harder. Lim Seol expresses that while many may not survive, those who do will emerge even stronger. On the other side, Paya Wall breaks So Jioxin's arm. Lim Seol asks if Paya Wall was the one who did this. Paya Wall thinks back to when they arrived and confirms that he was indeed responsible. He reflects that his sword was too fast to be seen with the naked eye. He wonders if he made a mistake by acting too swiftly, thinking that they only want a useful tool, and that making an error here could cost him his life. Paya Wall advises that an assassin must never leave any trace under any circumstances, and breaking an arm like that only reveals his martial art and identity to his opponent. Lim Seol emphasizes the importance of this lesson and instructs Paya Wall to remember that he must never leave any traces behind. The scene shifts 6 years later. An assassin arrives at a location and remarks that if he were an enemy, he would already be dead. He thinks that no matter how diligently they've studied, an inexperienced assassin's turtle-breathing technique is likely to be noticeable. He acknowledges that he is still far from being ready and continues to search the area. He wonders if the information he received about 5 people hiding in this zone was incorrect, or perhaps they are not present. He notes that despite searching intensively, he doesn't sense any signs of life or human presence in the area, which leaves him puzzled about what's going on. He exclaims that he can't find him and instructs the person to come out. He thinks the person is hiding very close to him and realizes it's him as he sees someone there. Paya Wall emerges and inquires if he can take a break now that training is over. He receives a positive response, but as Paya Wall departs, he is verbally abused. So Jioxin notices Paya Wall's presence and teases him, asking what Mr. Pompous is doing over there. Paya Wall points out that So Jioxin has changed his face again and questions if it's Yu Quangin's face. So Jioxin confirms that Yu Quangin passed away not too long ago, and he has been using his face effectively. He comments that at that rate, he'll forget what his real face looks like. The other person responds with an indifferent attitude, stating that it doesn't matter because they will never escape from this place anyway. He wonders aloud, and the other person asks what's on his mind. He explains that the quality of the food is gradually improving, so they'll likely be assigned a mission soon. The first swordman, Lim Seol, sits in his room and removes his mask. He reflects that in the last 6 years, they have transformed 30 out of the 300 into assassins. The Jianghu is a cruel place where one is killed if they do not kill, and the children here are in a better position than he was when he started from rock bottom. He acknowledges that he must be approaching his death soon, and he has become quite emotional. Just then, the second swordman, Gu Xinhing, and the third sword, Sang Ilshin, arrive. Sang Ilshin inquires why he has his mask off. Lim Seol responds that it was just stifling, and he suggests that they think 6 years is long enough, and they are free to take theirs off as well. They also remove their masks. Lim Seol mentions that alcohol is the best to drink at a time like this and expresses his disappointment. Sang Ilshin says they can drink as much as they want when they get out of here, can't they? It's not too far off now. He states that it has almost been 7 years, and if there are no complications, the children will be sent for assassination, and they will be liberated from this place. Lim Seol inquires about how the children are faring. Gu Xinhing responds that they have surpassed expectations. Some are stronger than the instructors and are almost beyond their control. It's too much of a waste to discard them after a single use. Lim Seol acknowledges that they have no choice. It was a condition of the request, after all. It's time for them to commence the final stage. After a while, all the assassins gather, and the swordmen give them 3 books. Lim Seol states that 3 of them must learn this martial art technique, while the other 27 must assassinate the 3 who have learned this martial art. They express their disbelief that they are being asked to kill each other again. Lim Seol clarifies that this is their final training, and once they complete it, they will not force any more on them until they leave this place. They are all shocked and wonder if he is telling the truth and if they can truly leave this place. So Yoal considers whether they are suggesting that 27 of them can rest until they leave this place if they sacrifice 3 people. Paya Wall reflects that they have set quite the bait for them, and the one who learns that martial arts will become a target. This martial art is likely the one their assassination target has learned, and it's probably at a higher level than what they've learned so far. He raises his hand and states that he will learn it, so Yoal asks if he is choosing to be a scapegoat willingly. He replies that they will find out whether he becomes a scapegoat or a wolf. She advises him to be cautious as everyone here will be targeting him. He responds that he looks forward to it. After a while, they begin to fight. Song Chun-woo injures a student with a sword and expresses his apologies. He believes he had to learn the martial arts after they all drew lots, and he must feel wronged. But he had no choice either. Currently, there is only one of the 3 people who learn the martial arts remaining. On the other side, So Joksun exclaims, "What a feast," and he is currently enjoying the time of his life. Lee Seolman inquires if Paya Wall is the only one remaining now. She mentions that it has been a while since they lost sight of Paya Wall, and wonders if he could have gone outside. So Yoal responds no, he's probably still inside, and they simply have not found him yet. She reflects on the last time she saw Paya Wall, which was during their training a few days ago. The story flashes back to when So Yoal and Paya Wall were fighting against each other. She tells him that she believes he would do better without that sword. She says she doesn't fear him with a sword for some reason, even if he blocks all her attacks. The story shifts to the present, and she wonders if she offered him unnecessary advice, as he's already a challenging opponent to handle. So Joksun suggests killing the instructors instead, which is probably much easier than killing Paya Wall. Song Chun-woo agrees but points out that there's no way the instructors would leave them without any countermeasures. He believes they have imposed some form of restriction. So Yoal concurs, suggesting they consider removing the restrictions later and focus on finding Paya Wall for now. He agrees, and So Joksun says they don't have much of a choice, so they all set out to find Paya Wall. After they depart, Paya Wall arrives and examines the deceased student, whom Song Chun-woo had killed a little while earlier. He speculates that the instructors are likely preoccupied with pursuing the children who are attempting to locate him, and there's no way they would not keep surveillance on children who are contemplating such matters. He concludes that, in that case, this may be his best opportunity to uncover their true objective. After a while, Paya Wall stealthily moves around the room, concealed behind a rock. He spots a guard stationed outside the door and ponders that this place serves as the instructor's temporary base. He considers that it's tightly guarded, but it's not something he can't get through. He recalls the instructors saying that the turtle breathing technique would be undone if he moved. However, if he uses the thunder-splitting cultivation technique to subtly divide his breathing, it alters the situation and allows him to move while erasing his presence to the absolute limit. He employs the split his breath technique and enters the base between the guards, confident that he can move in a manner that makes it impossible for human cognition to detect him. He believes he is finally inside. He begins to explore the base and eventually reaches the outside of a room. He contemplates that this is the deepest point of the base. He enters the room and initiates a search for something, pondering the secrets they are concealing and the identities of those attempting to mold them into assassins. He questions where this place is and how he can escape. Inside the room, he discovers a scroll box, opens it, and takes out the scroll. As he reads it, he learns that the Blood Phantom Group's captain has requested the assassination of Wu Gunseng, with a duration of 7 years and a reward of 500,000 gold yuan. He considers it to be a letter of request and wonders who Wu Gunseng is. He reflects on how extraordinary he must be for them to invest 7 years in training and testing assassins, during which 270 out of 300 have already perished. He questions whether he is truly worth all of this effort. Just then, he hears some noise and believes that someone is approaching. On the other side, the first swordman, Lim Seol, is advancing toward that room. He enters the room and observes the shattered objects, thinking that he cleaned up as best as he could, but it's sloppy. He exclaims that someone has been in the room. He then proceeds to Gu Xinhing and Sang Ilshin. Sang Ilshin asks if something is wrong, and he explains that there is an intruder in his room, and they need to find them since they likely have not yet escaped from the cave. Gu Xinhing expresses his outrage at the audacity of infiltrating the first sword's room and asks if he has any idea of who it could be. He responds that there is no one among the children more gifted at infiltration than him. He identifies him as Paya Wall. Meanwhile, Paya Wall has hung himself upside up on the roof to hide from them. Gu Sang Ilshin expresses disbelief, considering that he infiltrated this place while everyone was chasing him. Lim Seol warns that there will be a massive problem if they leave Paya Wall. Gu Sang Ilshin points out that punishing him without solid evidence of his infiltration will face strong opposition from the children. Lim Seol suggests directing their opposition toward Paya Wall. Gu Sang Ilshin asks how, and Lim Seol explains that he will use the Hell Call. Gu Xinhing mentions that it's a last resort restriction. Lim Seol argues that they have to use it sooner or later, and the time has come to show Paya Wall and all the children who their true owner is someone with their lives in the palm of his hand. He asks if they agree to the use of the hell call, and they confirm their agreement. After a while, Lim Se-al stands on a high rock, holding the flute, and plays it, intending to show them hell. On the other side, the students find Paya Wall, and so Yoal wonders where in the world he is hiding. The other children remark that they can't even see a trace of him. She reflects that even the children who are boasting about their tracking ability can't find a single trace of him, and if he's not in Sector 1 or here, then where could he be? Just then, they hear the flute music, so Yoal thinks it's the sound of an instrument. Everyone begins to feel pain in their chests, falls, and screams, calling for help. Lee Sealman wonders what's happening and feels as if an insect is devouring his entire body. Just then, Paya Wall arrives and sees her in a bad state. He says they activated the restriction. All the students are screaming in severe pain. Paya Wall experiences a sharp ringing in the ear. He observes that the others in pain have activated the restriction, but he only feels a slight pain in his ear. He contemplates why he's the only one unaffected and feels the need to understand the cause. He places his hand on Lee Sealman's back and employs certain techniques. He acknowledges that internal energy infusion is an extremely dangerous act, but it won't clash as much since Lee Sealman has also learned the thunder-splitting cultivation technique, and there's no issue with her internal energy. He reflects that they all share the same food, environment, and martial arts, and the question arises, is there some form of poison involved? He considers that if the restriction is related to poison, it makes sense that he is fine in this situation, having possibly acquired resistance to poison from being bitten by a snake for an extended period. However, he is puzzled about how they managed to awaken the dormant poison in the bodies of all 27 people simultaneously. He contemplates that it's impossible to activate poison with sound alone. He ponders the possibility that the substance inside their bodies is not poison but a poisonous insect. He considers the idea that curse poison might have been mixed into their food and water and is being stimulated through sound. Looking around, he remarks that they have all collapsed over there. Some assassins arrive at the scene. One of the assassins observes the students screaming and remarks that they were all gathered there. Paya Wall notices the presence of the assassins and contemplates his next move. He wonders if he should run, but fears that doing so might reveal his resistance to poison. He decides that he can't let them know that he's different from the other children and lies down to appear the same as the others. An assassin approaches him and informs the others that Paya Wall is here. The first swordman, Lim Se-al, arrives and rests his sword on his shoulder. He inquires about what Paya Wall saw in his room and acknowledges that he has concealed his abilities quite effectively until now. He comments that there's no way someone with a protruding fang like him would have remained sharp as he grew. He suggests that a nuisance like him would be better off being killed now and strikes him again with the sword. Just then, the second swordman, Gu Xinhing, appears and intervenes, saying that he must not be killed. He points out that Paya Wall is an expert in infiltration, and they need him for the current requests. Lim Se-al argues that the other children are sufficient for the task, but Gu Xinhing counters, stating that he knows as well that it's not true. Lim Se-al asks if Paya Wall thinks it will be easy to control him. Gu Xinhing responds that they can manipulate him as much as they want because they have the Hell Call, and he can see that Paya Wall is powerless against the cursed poison. He leaves Paya Wall and instructs an assassin to administer the antidote to the children. They provide all the children with the antidote, and they regain consciousness, asking what just happened. Lim Se-al blames Paya Wall for the punishment they all received, stating that this would not have happened if he hadn't infiltrated their base. He warns that if any of them repeat such actions, they should keep in mind that they will all experience the pain of today once more. After a while, Paya Wall sits in his room, meditating, and recalls Gu Xinhing's words about him being powerless against the cursed poison. He reflects that he had a hunch that the snake venom must have neutralized the cursed poison. He feels grateful that he was able to escape from the restrictions they had imposed on him. Meanwhile, So Yoal, So Jioksun, and Lee Sealman arrive at Paya Wall's room to find him. Lee Sealman inquires if Paya Wall is here. So Yoal surveys the room and expresses her dismay, unable to believe she's here and they have been granted time to rest. But he spends each day isolating himself in a place like this, focusing on training. So Jioksun remarks that they can never discern what he's up to, as he consistently avoids the company of others and chooses to stay in this dreary place. So Yoal recalls Lim Se-al's statement that Paya Wall is to blame for their collective punishment, and notes that, given the children's antipathy towards him since the incident, she understands why he keeps to himself. So Jioksun expresses his difficulty in finding him, wondering where he might be hiding. Just then, Pio Wall enters the room and questions why they are looking for him, leaving them all shocked at his sudden appearance. So Jokson tells Pio Wall that he almost scared him to death and advises him not to move around with his presence concealed. Pio Wall inquires about what they want to talk about, so Yoal explains that they just wanted to discuss the restriction that affects all of them and asks if he knows what it is. She points out that he was not present when they initially collapsed, but he was with them once they regained their senses. She deduces that this means he approached them after the restriction was activated, suggesting that he was either unaffected by the restriction or minimally affected by it. Lee Sealman thinks back to when she was feeling hazy due to the intense pain and how someone infused internal energy into her, suspecting that it might have been Pio Wall. So Yoal then directly asks him if he knows about the restriction that binds them. He responds affirmatively, acknowledging that he knows exactly what kind of restriction has been imposed on them. So Yoal presses for more information, asking him to explain it. Pio Wall questions why he should go out of his way to tell them and how that benefits him. So Jokson interjects, yelling at him and asking if that's how he treats his comrades. He argues that comrades would not chase after and attack each other with such zeal, asking them to consider that. So Jokson suggests that they can simply be comrades from now on. He swears that, regardless of what happens, he will never abandon him and will always consider him a friend. Pio Wall questions whether they expect him to trust them based solely on that and remarks that they are indeed stubborn. So Jokson responds that he has to be just as stubborn to learn face mask arts, and there are no downsides to having someone as capable as him as a friend. He adds that if they ever manage to regain their freedom, he should visit the Republic Arts Troupe, and because they have been through hell together, he will provide at least a little help. So Yoal states that she will also consider him a friend from now on, and the children who follow her will, at the very least, not show him hostility. Lee Sealman adds that she will also consider him special, and assures him that she will never betray him. He explains that it is a curse poison and that they were all poisoned by it. Curse poison is a type of poisonous organism that usually lies dormant in their bodies. However, it releases poison in response to the sound waves of the flute that they blow, and that poison travels through their blood vessels, attacking their internal organs. So Yoal asks how he is fine from the curse poison. He responds that he is normally resistant to poison, so it simply doesn't have as strong of an impact on him. Having shared this information, he tells them to figure out how to remove the curse poison on their own. He believes it's best to have as many variables as possible because even if only one of them escapes the curse poison's effect, it would create numerous variables. Lee Sealman gazes at him and finds him constantly mysterious, so Yoal expresses her gratitude and assures him that she will make sure to repay him for this favor. She tells him that if he ever needs anything, he should feel free to visit her, and she will help him to the best of her ability. He agrees to this, so Yoal then mentions that they should get going and prepare to leave the place. Lee Sealman remains behind with Pio Wall and introduces herself by sharing her real name. She requests that he remembers it. After a while, Lim Seol gathers all the children and announces that they will leave the cave today. He tells So Yoal that after the instructors depart, it will be her turn, and she is responsible for leading the children outside. She acknowledges her understanding. A basket descends from the ceiling, and Lim Seol observes all the children. He wonders how many of them will survive. He steps into the basket and reflects on the strength of these children. However, their target is a martial artist with the highest level of talent in the Jianghu, and they will face considerable challenges in surviving. Nonetheless, he considers it none of his business, and his role is now over, and he is prepared to retire and leave behind his life of assassination. After their departure, all the children become very happy and express their relief at finally being able to get out of there. So Yoal suggests that since the basket is not very big, half of them can get on first. Pio Wall looks up and wonders if they are going to escape from this place at last. So Yoal approaches him and speculates about the possibility of being included in a mission soon. Pio Wall responds with a probably and asks about what happened with the curse poison. So Yoal informs him that a few of them were detoxified and mentions that Min had extensive knowledge about poison. She suggests that all that's left for them is to leave, and they begin to move toward the basket. So Yoal instructs everyone to get on, as they are the last ones. They all stand in the basket, and it starts to ascend. Pio Wall reflects on how deep underground they were and how it wasn't just a hellish place but rather hell itself. 7 years in a place like that. So Jokson looks up and remarks that they are almost there, and it's the outside and they are finally getting out of there. Pio Wall tears the sleeve of his shirt, covers his eyes, and advises everyone to do the same if they don't want to go blind. They all follow his advice and cover their eyes. They emerge into the sunlight. He thinks to himself that it hurts and the light is too strong. The basket ascends, and Blood Phantom Group Captain Gu Jiang approaches it. He comments that they seem to have produced some useful individuals. Pio Wall wonders who this person is. Gu Jiang mentions that he is confident the requester will be satisfied. Pio Wall thinks that his voice sounds devoid of emotion, and he can infer that he holds an executive position based on his manner of speaking. He speculates that this man must be the captain of the Blood Phantom Group. Gu Jiang instructs the guard with a mask to get them all into the carriage and transport them to the Clear Wind Manor to help them acclimate to the outside world. The guard complies with his order. They place all the children in a carriage, and Pio Wall thinks that he has memorized the voice of the Blood Phantom Group captain. The carriage begins to move along a rocky pathway. After a while, they arrive at their destination. Gu Jiang thinks to himself that this is where they will all be staying, and they will be acclimated to the outside world in this place. He emphasizes that they should not let their guards down just because they are outside, and he is prepared to take action against any indolent individuals. Pio Wall looks outside the window and comments on how the lodging allocation ended up this way, suggesting that they shouldn't mind it. So Jioksun responds by asking who said they would. He then suggests that now that they are outside, they should find a way to clean themselves, and so Jioksun asks how. He points to a well. After a while, he lies down on the grass, gazes at the sky, and reflects on the moonlight, the wind, and the refreshing water. They have finally escaped from that place. On the other side, all the other children are enjoying and playing with water. Just then, two children spot a flower, and a boy with blue eyes asks about the name of the flower. The girl comments on its beauty. He expresses disbelief that he gets to see something like this again. Their emotions well up. Suddenly, a guard arrives, places his shoe on the flower, and brandishes a weapon. He informs them that they will be distributing weapons, so they should keep them safe as they will be using them soon. After a while, in the Clear Breeze District, at the Great Moon Palace, Blood Phantom Group Captain Gu Jiang sits with the first swordman Lim Seol, holding a goblet, and expresses his gratitude for his hard work. Lim Seol humbly responds that he only did what he should have done. Gu Jiang acknowledges that their group has become more prosperous thanks to the sacrifices of others. He admits he doesn't know how to repay this favor. He reassures him that there is no favor to repay, and he would already be dead if it weren't for the former head. Gu Jiang tells him that he has done all that is needed of him and that he may rest now. He asks if this means he is being permitted to retire, to which Gu Jiang responds affirmatively, mentioning that he has arranged for not only him but also the second and third sword to retire. He expresses his gratitude, and Gu Jiang insists that it's no problem at all, considering that he has always given his all for the Blood Phantom Group, so this is the least he can do. He remarks that those children are indeed a waste. Gu Jiang agrees. He observes that they are too talented to be discarded after just one use. He expresses regret at the thought of wasting such talent but acknowledges that it can't be helped, and their relationship with those children ends here. He inquires if Gu Jiang has managed to determine who the requester is. Gu Jiang responds that he doesn't know either and advises against crossing that line if they wish to remain in the business. He believes there is no reason to provoke a big shot willing to pay 500,000 gold yuan for a request. He reflects on the need for extreme caution until the Blood Phantom Group grows enough to be on par with the Jianghu's greatest assassin group, the White Spirit Lotus. Gu Jiang adds that the Blood Phantom Group will take a massive leap if they manage to complete this request, and once they do, it's not impossible to catch up to the White Spirit Lotus. Meanwhile, Pio Wall sees his weapon, so Jioksun asks what he is thinking so hard about and if he's trembling now that it's time to go on the mission soon. He responds, well, to an extent. So Jioksun accuses him of lying again and says everyone would laugh at that joke. He retorts that it seems so Jioksun is the one trembling, considering he's talking a lot more than usual. So Jioksun becomes angry and says he wants nothing more than to be assigned to the mission as soon as possible, and he feels that the only way to reward himself for all that suffering is by beheading someone. Just then, Gu Jiang announces that they should come out with the weapons they were provided with right now, and they will now be stealthily moving somewhere. Pio Wall thinks, finally. After a while, in the night, all the children follow the fourth swordsman through a forest. He thinks they are all following him well without falling behind. The senior brothers raised them well. He thinks what a waste. These children don't fall behind in any way compared to their regular members. He reaches the end of a mountain and stops there. He tells them to hide themselves here. He says their objective lies within that mountain, and if they climb the mountain as per his instructions, they will see a manor that looks the same as the one they were all living in. Among the buildings, the man inside the Bright Moon Palace is their target. The children think the Bright Moon Palace is the small house on the outskirts of the manor, and they have memorized the way there to the point that they are sick of it, and just who the hell is in there for them to be trapped in that hell for 7 years training to be assassins. The next morning, young Xiaoran is in the garden and touches a flower, which turns into dust. The elderly master of brilliance, Imei Sect, comes to her and asks if she is by herself again. She explains that she was outside because the breeze felt pleasant. The elderly master comments on her persistent sentimentality and asks if she still resents her. She replies that it's not about resentment but rather inconvenience. She mentions that her life is on the line for this and she would have appreciated being excused from it.